Danny Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. The warehouse was hot even at midnight. The old air conditioning system made more noise than cool air. He had been working the night shift for 3 years now, ever since. The divorce. The pay was not great, but it was steady work. He walked between the tall shelves, checking that everything was in the right place. Boxes of car parts, electronics, and random stuff that people ordered online. His job was simple. Make sure nothing fell down. Fix things that broke. Keep the place running until the day shift came in at 8 in the morning. Danny was not a small man, 6 feet tall and built like a brick wall from his time in the Marines. His hands were rough from years of hard work. His back ached most days, but he never complained. There were younger guys who could do the job, but none of them showed. Up every day, like Danny did. The radio on his belt crackled. "Danny, you there?" It was his supervisor, Carl. "Yeah, I'm here. What do you need? Coffee machine is acting up again." "Think you can take a look?" Danny sighed. The coffee machine was older than his truck. It broke down every other week. "I'll check it out." He made his way to the break room. The machine was making a grinding noise that sounded like a dying animal. Danny opened it up and saw the problem right away. Someone had used the wrong type of coffee filter again. He cleaned it out and got it working. This was his life. Fix things. Keep things running. Go home to his empty apartment. Sleep during the day. Do it all again the next night. 6 months ago, something strange had happened. Danny was operating the big crane in the loading dock when he saw what looked like a weird aircraft hovering outside. It was silver and made no sound. He thought it might be some kind of new drone, or maybe a military test flight. The thing came too close to the building. Danny was worried it might hit something or hurt someone, so he used the crane to push it away. The aircraft exploded in a bright flash of light. Pieces fell into the river behind the warehouse. The next day, the news said it was probably a gas leak explosion somewhere in the city. Nobody asked Danny about it. Nobody seemed to care. He figured it was just some rich guy's toy drone that got too close to the building. But Danny was wrong. Very wrong. Got far away in space, on a ship bigger than most cities, an alien commander named Thane stared at a holographic display. The display showed Earth, a small blue planet that most of the galaxy ignored. But not anymore. The scout ship was destroyed, reported his assistant, a thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes. Complete destruction, no survivors. Thane's reptilian face showed no emotion. Show me the attack. The hologram changed to show the warehouse. It showed the crane moving with perfect timing to intercept the scout ship. It showed the exact moment of impact. To alien eyes, it looked like a perfectly planned military strike. Incredible precision. Thane said, "The human knew exactly where our ship would be." This was not luck. This was skill. The assistant nodded. Our intelligence was wrong. The humans are not as primitive as we thought. This one destroyed our most advanced scout ship with primitive equipment. Find out who this human is. I want to know everything about him. Within hours, alien spies had gathered information about Danny Martinez, but they got it all wrong. They saw his military service and thought he was still a soldier. They saw him working night shifts and thought he was planning secret operations. They saw him living alone and thought he was a dangerous loner. The report that reached Thane painted a picture of a brilliant military mind, a human warrior who could destroy alien technology with simple tools, a threat that needed to be eliminated before Earth became a problem for the rest of the galaxy. Send the triad, Thane ordered, our 3 best assassins. Make it look like an accident. Vex was 7 feet tall with green scales and muscles like steel cables. He could crush metal with his bare hands. He had killed enemies on 50 different worlds. Kira was small and fast, with skin that could change color like a chameleon. She could move so quickly that most beings could not see her. Her claws carried poison that killed in seconds. Zan was built like a walking tank. His species had natural armor plating and could survive explosions that would level buildings. He carried weapons that could melt through solid rock. The three of them had never failed a mission. They had killed kings, generals, and warlords. They worked together like a machine designed for death. They studied the files on Danny Martinez. They saw a dangerous enemy who needed to be stopped. They planned their attack for weeks. They would strike when he was alone and vulnerable. Meanwhile, Danny finished his shift and signed out on the time clock. He had no idea that three of the deadliest beings in the galaxy were coming to kill him. He was thinking about whether he had enough gas in his truck to get home. He was wondering if his ex-wife would let him take their daughter to the movies this weekend. He walked toward his truck in the empty parking lot. The night was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic on the highway. Danny fished his keys out of his pocket and thought about stopping for coffee on the way home. He had no idea that his simple life was about to become very complicated. Danny reached his truck and put the key in the door. The old Ford had seen better days, but it started every morning and got him to work every night. That was all he needed. He was about to open the door when he heard a sound behind him, like someone stepping on gravel. Danny turned around, expecting to see Carl or maybe one of the security guards. Instead, he saw the strangest thing he had ever seen in his life. A huge figure stepped out from behind a van. The person was wearing some kind of green costume that covered their whole body. It looked like reptile skin, but shinier. The costume had fake muscles built into it and a mask that looked like a lizard head. The person had to be at least 7 feet tall. "Okay," Danny said slowly. "That's a really good costume." Before he could say anything else, another figure dropped from the roof of a nearby building. This one was smaller and wearing black clothes that seemed to shift color in the light. The person moved fast, almost too fast to see clearly. "Nice parkour," Danny said, genuinely impressed. "You been practicing that?" A third person appeared from between two cars. This one was wearing what looked like gray armor with fake weapons attached. The biggest weapon looked like a ray gun from an old science fiction movie. It was glowing blue and making humming sounds. Danny looked at the three costumed people surrounding him. His first thought was that he was being mugged by the weirdest gang he had ever seen. His second thought was that these people had put a lot of work into their outfits. "Look," Danny said, raising his hands slowly. "I don't want any trouble. I just worked 12 hours, and I'm tired. I've got maybe $23 in my wallet and a gas station sandwich. You can have it all. Just don't make this harder than it has to be." The three figures looked at each other. Danny could not see their faces clearly because of the masks, but they seemed confused. The big one in the lizard costume stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was deep and strange, like it was talking through some kind of voice changer. "You are Danny Martinez," it said. "Yeah, that's me. Look, if this is about money, I owe someone. We can work something out. I'm good for it." The small one in black moved closer. It moved like a dancer, smooth and quick. When it got close enough, Danny could see that the costume had built-in claws on the fingers. "Those are some serious special effects," Danny said. "You guys do this for movies or something." The person in black reached toward Danny's neck with one clawed hand. Danny caught their wrist without thinking about it. Old Marine training never really went away. "Whoa there," Danny said. "Personal space, you know. I don't know what kind of game this is, but I'm not playing." The person in black tried to pull away, but Danny's grip was strong. The person seemed surprised by this. "Look, lady," Danny said, guessing by the person's size that it might be a woman. "I get that times are tough. Trust me, I know all about that. But mugging people is not the answer. There are programs that can help. Food banks, job training. You don't have to do this." The third person, the one with the armor and the ray gun, pointed the weapon at Danny. It made more humming sounds and the blue glow got brighter. "Careful with that thing," Danny said. "I don't know how you rigged up those lights and sounds, but electronics can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing." The weapon made a crackling sound. Danny was pretty sure it was just special effects, but he decided to be safe. "Seriously, you could hurt someone with that. Is it battery powered? Because if those batteries overheat, they can explode." The person with the weapon looked confused. The weapon made a whining sound and then shot out a bolt of blue energy. It hit the side of Danny's truck and left a smoking hole in the metal. Danny stared at the hole. Then he looked at the weapon and back at the hole. "Okay," he said. "That's either the best special effect I've ever seen, or you guys are in way more trouble than I thought." The big one in the lizard costume walked over to a steel fence post nearby. It grabbed the post with both hands and crushed it like it was made of paper. Metal crumpled and twisted under its grip. Danny watched this happen. He looked at the person's hands. The costume was so good that he could see individual scales on the fingers. The strength was real too. Nobody could fake crushing steel like that. "You been working out?" Danny asked. "Because that's some serious grip strength." The small one in black finally pulled free from Danny's grip. Instead of attacking again, it just stood there, breathing hard. Danny could see now that the person was shaking slightly. "Hey, you okay?" Danny asked. "You look cold. Here." Danny took off his work jacket and held it out to the person in black. "It's not much, but it'll help keep you warm." The three costumed figures looked at each other again. Danny could sense some kind of communication happening between them, even though he could not hear what they were saying. "Look," Danny said, "I don't know what's going on here, but you all seem like you're having a rough night. There's a diner about 10 minutes from here. Open all night. Good coffee, decent pie. Why don't I give you a ride? We can figure out whatever this is over some food." The person with the ray gun lowered the weapon. The big one stopped crushing things. The small one stopped shaking. "My truck's got room for 4, Danny continued. "Heat works pretty good too. What do you say?" The three figures stood in the parking lot for a long moment. Danny could see them looking at each other, though their faces were hidden by masks and costumes. Finally, the big one nodded. "We will come with you," it said in that strange, deep voice. "Great," Danny said. He opened the passenger door of his truck. "Pile in. It'll be a tight fit, but we'll make it work." The small one in black climbed into the truck first. Up close, Danny could see that the costume was incredibly detailed. Every piece looked real. The claws, the way the fabric moved, even the way the person breathed. Either this was the most expensive costume ever made, or something very strange was happening. The big one had to duck down to fit in the truck. Its head nearly touched the roof. The third one, the one with the armor, squeezed in next to the others. The ray gun thing was folded up and clipped to their belt. Danny got behind the wheel and started the engine. The radio came on automatically, playing an old country song. He turned it down low. "So," Danny said as he drove out of the parking lot, "you guys do this professionally? The costume thing? Because those are some serious special effects." The big one spoke first. "We are not performers." "Oh, okay. LARP then? Live action role-playing? I had a buddy in the Marines who was into that. He used to dress up like a wizard on weekends." There was silence from his passengers. "Or maybe you're making a movie." Student film project? More silence. Danny tried a different approach. I'm Danny, by the way. What should I call you guys? The big one hesitated. I am called ... Vex. Cool name. Very dramatic. What about you two? The small one spoke for the first time. The voice was definitely female, but with the same strange accent as Vex. Kira. And I am Zan, said the one with the armor. Nice to meet you all. Those are some interesting names. Foreign exchange students? Kira made a sound that might have been laughter. Something like that. They drove through the empty streets. At 2 a.m, Detroit was mostly quiet, except for the occasional truck or police car. Danny knew the way to the diner by heart. He had been going there after work for months. So what's the story? Danny asked. You guys seem too old to be out this late just for fun. And that equipment you've got looks expensive. Somebody paying you to do this? Vex shifted in his seat. The movement made the truck rock slightly. It is ... complicated. Most things are, Danny said. But I've got time if you want to talk about it. Zan spoke up. You are not what we expected. What did you expect? The 3 passengers looked at each other again. Danny was starting to realize they did this a lot. Like they could communicate without words. We were told you were dangerous, Kira said finally. Danny laughed. Dangerous? Me? Lady, the most dangerous thing I do is change the oil in this truck. And even then I usually mess something up. But you destroyed the ship, Zan said. Ship? What ship? Danny thought for a moment. Oh, you mean that weird drone thing? That was 6 months ago. How do you even know about that? Drone? Vex's voice sounded confused. Yeah, some kind of fancy aircraft. Probably cost more than I make in a year. It was flying too close to the warehouse. I was worried it might hit something or hurt somebody, so I pushed it away with the crane. Thing exploded like a firework. The 3 passengers were quiet for a long time. You thought it was a drone, Kira said slowly. What else would it be? Little silver thing, no sound, flying around at night. Had to be some rich guy's toy, or maybe a military test flight that went off course. Danny pulled into the parking lot of the diner. It was a small place called Amy's, open 24 hours. The sign was old, and half the letters were burned out. But the food was good, and the coffee was strong. Here we are, Danny said. Best pie in the city, according to Amy. She's the owner. Been running this place for 20 years. They got out of the truck. Danny's 3 passengers moved stiffly, like they were not used to being in vehicles. Or maybe the costumes were just uncomfortable. Inside the diner, Amy looked up from behind the counter. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. She knew Danny from his regular visits. Danny, honey, you're here late even for you. And who are your friends? Hey, Amy, these are Vex, Kira, and Zan. They're having a rough night. Think we could get some coffee and maybe some of that apple pie? Amy looked at the 3 costumed figures. If she was surprised by their appearance, she did not show it. She had seen all kinds of people come through her diner over the years. Of course, honey. You all just sit anywhere you like. Coffee coming right up. They took a booth in the corner. Vex had to sit sideways because his legs were too long for the space. Kira kept looking around like she expected trouble. Zan stared at the menu like he had never seen one before. Amy brought coffee in thick white mugs. She poured without asking. What anyone wanted. In her experience, people who came to her diner at 2 a.m. needed coffee. So, Danny said, stirring sugar into his coffee, now that we're somewhere warm, you want to tell me what's really going on? Because I'm starting to think this isn't about money. Kira wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. Even through the strange costume, Danny could see that she was cold. He pushed his jacket across the table to her. You really think we are just people in costumes, she said. Well, yeah. I mean, what else would you be? The three looked at each other again. This time, Danny was sure they were having some kind of conversation he could not hear. Danny, Vex said carefully, what if we told you we were not from around here? Like, not from Detroit? Not from Michigan? Not from Earth? Danny took a sip of his coffee and thought about this. You mean like aliens? Yes. Danny looked at them for a long moment. Then he started to laugh. Danny's laughter was not mean or mocking. It was the kind of laugh someone makes when they hear something so unexpected that they cannot help themselves. Aliens, he said, wiping his eyes. That's a new one. Usually people who try to mug me just say they need money for drugs or rent. The three figures at the table did not laugh with him. They sat very still, watching him carefully. You do not believe us, Vex said. Look, I've had a long night. I'm tired, I'm broke, and I just met three people in the most amazing costumes I've ever seen. If you want to pretend to be aliens, that's fine with me. We can all pretend together. Kira leaned forward. What would it take to convince you? Danny thought about it. I don't know. Something that couldn't be done with special effects or really good costumes. Zan reached into his armor and pulled out a small device. It looked like a metal cube with lights on each side. He placed it on the table and pressed one of the lights. The cube began to float 6 inches above the table. It spun slowly, casting colored lights on the walls of the diner. There were no strings, no wires, nothing holding it up. Danny stared at the floating cube. He reached out and passed his hand underneath it. Nothing there but air. Okay, he said slowly. That's either the best magic trick I've ever seen, or you guys really are aliens. We really are aliens, Kira said quietly. Amy came over with a pot of coffee to refill their mugs. She looked at the floating cube and nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. That's nice, honey, she said to Zan. You boys and girls from one of those science schools. Very impressive. After Amy walked away, Danny looked at his 3 companions with new eyes. So if you're really aliens, what are you doing here? And why were you trying to... What were you trying to do to me in the parking lot? Vex's voice was quiet when he answered. We were sent to kill you. Danny blinked. Kill me? Why? Because our leaders think you are dangerous. They think you destroyed our scout ship on purpose. They think you are a military threat. The drone thing? I told you. That was an accident. I was just trying to push it away from the building. We know that now, Kira said. But our people saw the video and thought it was a planned attack. They sent us to eliminate the threat before it could get worse. Danny took a long sip of his coffee. So you're assassins? Yes, Zan said. Alien assassins. Yes, and you came here to kill me because I accidentally hit your scout ship with a crane. That is correct. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he started laughing again. Not the shocked laughter from before, but the tired laughter of someone who had heard too many strange things in one night. This is the weirdest Tuesday I've ever had, he said. And I once spent 3 days in a foxhole with a guy who collected bottle caps. His phone rang. Danny looked at the caller ID, and his whole expression changed. The tired amusement was replaced by concern. Sorry, I have to take this. It's my ex-wife. He answered the phone. Kate, what's wrong? It's 2 a.m. The 3 aliens watched as Danny's face went through a series of emotions. Worry, relief, then something softer. She is? Really? When? Danny smiled for the first time that night. A real smile? Not the careful one he used with strangers. That's great, Kate. I'm so proud of her. He listened for a while longer. Thursday night? I'm working, but maybe I can trade shifts with someone. This is important. More listening. I know I missed the last one. I know. But this is different. She's playing the lead role this time. I want to be there." Danny looked at the three aliens across from him. They were listening to every word, though he did not realize how much they could understand. "Kate, I have to go. But I'll figure something out about Thursday. Give Lauren a hug for me, and tell her I'm proud of her." "Yeah, okay. Bye." He hung up and put the phone back in his pocket. The smile was still on his face. "My daughter," he explained. "She's 8. She got the lead role in her school play. It's this Thursday night. You have offspring," Vex said. It was not a question. "Lauren, she's the smartest, funniest kid you've ever met. Gets that from her mom. Thank God. She's playing a princess who saves the kingdom with kindness instead of fighting." Kira tilted her head. "You are proud of her?" "Course I am. She worked really hard for that part. Had to memorize all kinds of lines and songs. Been practicing for weeks." "But you work Thursday nights," Zan observed. "Yeah, I do. But I'll figure something out. Maybe trade with Bobby from the day shift. He owes me a favor from when I covered for him last month." The three aliens looked at each other again. But this time, Danny noticed something different in the way they moved. Less like predators sizing up prey. More like people trying to understand something new. "You would give up work to watch your child perform," Vex said. "Well, yeah. It's important to her, so it's important to me. That's how it works when you're a parent." Amy came back with plates of apple pie. The pie was still warm and smelled like cinnamon and home. She set a plate in front of each of them. "On the house," she said. "You all look like you could use some sweetness in your lives." Danny picked up his fork and took a bite. "Amy makes the best pie in 3 counties. Family recipe." Kira carefully removed one of her claws and tried to pick up a fork. Her hands were shaking slightly. Danny noticed. "You? Okay? Still cold?" "I am uncertain," she said. "This is not what we expected." "What did you expect?" "A warrior, a strategist. Someone who would fight us or try to escape. Someone who would see us as enemies and act accordingly. Instead, you got a guy who thinks you're lost kids and wants to buy you pie." "Yes," Danny took another bite and thought about this. "You know, when I was in the Marines, we learned about something called rules of engagement. Basically, it means you don't shoot unless you're sure you're shooting at the right target. Sounds like your people might need to work on that." "Our intelligence was wrong," Zan admitted. "Intelligence is usually wrong," Danny said. "That's why smart people ask questions before they start shooting." He looked at the 3 aliens who had come to kill him. They were sitting in a diner at 2 in the morning, eating pie and drinking coffee. Kira had stopped shaking. Vex had relaxed enough that he was not sitting like he was ready to fight. Zan had put away his weapons. "So what happens now?" Danny asked. "Do you go back and tell your people they made a mistake? Do I need to worry about more alien assassins showing up?" The 3 looked at each other one more time. When they turned back to Danny, something had changed in their posture. A decision had been made. "We are not going back," Vex said quietly. "What do you mean?" "We mean," Kira said, "that we choose to stay here, with you. With humans. But you barely know humans. You barely know me." "We know enough," Zan said. "We know that you showed kindness to strangers who tried to harm you. We know that you care. More about your child's happiness than your own comfort. We know that you work hard for little reward and still find ways to help others. That's just being human," Danny said. "Yes," Vex replied. "That is exactly the point." The sun was starting to come up when they left the diner. Danny had bought everyone breakfast, despite their protests. Amy had packed extra coffee in paper cups for the road. She treated the 3 aliens like any other customers, asking if they needed directions and telling them to drive safe. "Amy's good people," Danny said as they walked to his truck. "Been feeding night shift workers and insomniacs for 20 years. Never asks too many questions." They were halfway to the truck when the sky lit up with blue light. 3 ships descended from the clouds. They were bigger than the scout ship Danny had accidentally destroyed, and they made no attempt to hide. The ships landed in the parking lot with a sound like thunder. "That's not good," Zan said, reaching for his weapon. Danny stared at the ships. They were definitely not drones or military aircraft. They were too strange, too obviously not made by human hands. "Back up," Vex said grimly. "They must have been watching us." Soldiers poured out of the ships. They wore armor similar to Zan's, but newer and more advanced. Their weapons were bigger and more threatening. Danny counted at least 20 of them. A figure stepped forward from the group. This one was taller than Vex, with darker scales and golden armor. When it spoke, its voice carried across the parking lot like a loudspeaker. "Triad unit, report your status." Vex, Kira, and Zan moved to stand between Danny and the new arrivals. "We are no longer your Triad unit, Commander Thane," Vex called back. "Explain your failure to complete the mission." "There was no mission to complete. The target is not a threat. Our intelligence was wrong." Thane moved closer, his soldiers fanning out around him. "You were sent to eliminate a dangerous human warrior. Instead, I find you drinking stimulants and consuming nutrition with the target." "We were drinking coffee and eating pie," Kira said, "and his name is Danny." Danny stepped forward, despite Vex trying to block him. "Look, I don't know what's going on here, but maybe we can talk this out. Seems like there's been a big misunderstanding." Thane stared at Danny. "You are the human who destroyed our scout ship." "Yeah, that was me. Total accident, by the way. I thought it was a drone that got too close to the building. Sorry about that. You admit to the attack." "I admit to knocking your ship away from my workplace with a crane." "If that counts as an attack, then sure, but it wasn't intentional." Thane raised his weapon, a massive rifle that hummed with energy. "Intention is irrelevant. You destroyed Zephyrian property. The penalty is death. Now hold on," Danny said, raising his hands. "That seems a little extreme for an accident." "There are no accidents in war, human. We're not at war. At least I'm not. I don't even know who you people are." Zahn stepped in front of Danny. "Commander, you are making a mistake. This human is not a warrior. He is not a threat. He is just a person trying to live his life. He has corrupted you." Thane snarled. "All of you. You have forgotten your duty." "Our duty was to eliminate a threat," Vex said. "There is no threat here. You have been compromised. Stand aside and we will complete the mission ourselves." The 3 former assassins looked at each other one last time, and they drew their weapons. "No," Kira said simply. The parking lot erupted in chaos. Thane's soldiers opened fire. Energy beams lit up the early morning darkness. Vex charged forward, with a roar that shook the windows of the diner. Kira disappeared into the shadows, moving too fast to track. Zahn's armor absorbed shot after shot as he returned fire with his own weapons. Danny dove behind his truck as energy bolts scorched the pavement around him. This was definitely not how he had planned to spend his morning. "Danny!" Vex shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "Stay down." "What do you think I'm doing?" Danny shouted back. The fight was intense but brief. Vex, Kira, and Zan knew how their former comrades would fight. They used that knowledge against them. Within minutes, half of Thane's soldiers were down. The others were falling back toward their ships. Thane himself was trapped behind a concrete barrier, trading shots with Zan. "This is madness," Thane yelled. You betray your own kind for this primitive creature. We are not betraying anyone, Vex replied, crushing a soldier's weapon with his bare hands. We are choosing a better way. There is no better way. There is only strength and weakness. Danny poked his head up from behind his truck. The fight was winding down, but Thane was still pinned down and still dangerous. Hey, Danny called out. Thane, right? Can we talk for a minute? I will not negotiate with humans. I'm not asking you to negotiate. I'm asking you to listen. Against all logic, Thane stopped shooting. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the complete strangeness of a human trying to have a conversation in the middle of a firefight. Talk, human. But make it quick. Danny stood up, ignoring Vex's urgent gestures to get back down. Your people sent assassins after me, because you thought I was dangerous. But they found out I'm not. I'm just a guy who works nights and tries to take care of his kid. I don't want to fight your people. I don't even want to fight you. You destroyed our ship, by accident. And I'm sorry about that. If there was a way to fix it or pay for it, I would. But killing me isn't going to bring your ship back. It's just going to make one little girl very sad when her dad doesn't come to her school play. Thane was quiet for a long moment. You have a offspring, he said finally. A daughter, Lauren. She's 8 years old, and she's the best thing I ever did. With my life, and you would die to protect her, without question. But you would also live to see her grow up. If I have the choice, yeah. Thane slowly stood up. His weapon was still in his hands, but it was not pointed at Danny anymore. My people believe that strength comes from the willingness to destroy. Enemies, maybe, Danny said. But I think real strength comes from making friends out of enemies. Takes a lot more guts to trust someone than to shoot them. Thane looked at Vex, Kira, and Zan. They had their weapons ready, but were not attacking. They were waiting to see what their former commander would do. You really choose this? Thane asked them. You choose to stay with humans. We choose to stay with Danny, Kira said. And yes, that means staying with humans. They are not what we thought they were, Vex added. They are better. Thane was quiet for a long time. Finally, he put his weapon away. Take your ships and go, he told his remaining soldiers. Report that the mission was completed. The target has been eliminated. But Commander, one of the soldiers protested. The human is still alive. The threat has been eliminated, Thane said firmly. That is all Command needs to know. The soldiers looked confused, but obeyed. They loaded their wounded and boarded their ships. Within minutes, they were gone, disappearing into the morning sky. Thane turned to Danny. Your species is more dangerous than we thought, but not in the way we expected. How do you mean? You make people want to be better than they are. That is a very dangerous thing. Thane walked toward his own ship. At the doorway, he paused. Take care of them, he said, nodding toward Vex, Kira, and Zan. They are good warriors. They will be good humans, too. Then he was gone. Danny looked at his 3 alien friends. So what now? You guys need a place to stay? Because my apartment is small, but we can make it work. We should find our own accommodations. Vex said, but we would like to stay close. There are apartments near the warehouse. And speaking of which, you guys need jobs. Think you'd be interested in warehouse work? Pays not great, but it's honest. We would be honored, Kira said. Great. I'll talk to Carl in the morning. He's always complaining about being short-staffed. Danny's phone buzzed. A text message from his ex-wife. He read it and smiled. Lauren's play is Thursday at 7. You guys want to come? I think she'd get a kick out of meeting you. Just maybe tone down the alien thing until she's older. We would be honored, Zan said. Perfect. Fair warning, though. 8-year-olds ask a lot of questions. Hope you're ready for that. As they drove back toward town, Danny thought about how strange his life had become in the space of one night. This morning, he had been a divorced warehouse worker with money problems and a broken coffee machine to fix. Now he had 3 alien friends, a better understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy, and tickets to the best school play in the universe. All things considered, it had been a pretty good night.